My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voices of Wrestling Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
It's my music.
You're listening to Music of the Mat on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Music of the Mat. I am your host, Andrew Rich. It has been a long time since the last episode. The short break I wanted to do turned into a long break. And the reason for that is pretty simple. I got burnt out doing the show, and I didn't really want to do it all that much anymore. And it turns out, when you're not doing something you don't want to do, that's pretty great. I recommend it a lot. It's a lot of fun. So I took a lot of time off of the show, and about a month or so ago, I had this idea to bring the show back, but do it, what I'm calling it, as a remix format of the show, where instead of playing and analyzing wrestling songs like we used to do back in the day, instead we'll play and talk about real songs, real pop songs and whatnot, that are inspired by a topic that is a wrestling reference, a wrestling term, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now, when I came up with this idea, I was a little hesitant because, on the one hand, it does lose a lot of the uniqueness of the old format. But like I said, I was burnt out doing that old format, just taking copious notes, hunting down all of these songs, these obscure themes that were used only once, in a blue moon, repeating a lot of the same talking points and analysis as well. It got boring and a grind, and again, not fun. And a podcast host should want to have fun. They should want to be there and be passionate about the subject. And I am still very, very passionate about music, more so than wrestling in some ways these days. And I think doing this remixed format would be fun and still unique in its own way. And I talked about this with Rich. I told him about this ahead of time. He said, go for it. You do a great job just talking to people and conversing. I think he thought it'd be a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy this because I'm very excited about it. I'm looking forward to what comes next. And I am not alone, by the way, because with me today on this first of a new venture is a former guest. She is a music journalist and college professor, and an absolute delight, as always. Aww. It's Maura Johnston. Hello again, Maura.
Hi, thank you. That's such a nice intro. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Very happy that you're back.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad that you're the one doing this first one here with me. Not just because you have a deep well of musical know-how, of course, but I also just like talking to you. And that's really what I'm going for here. Just a casual hang, playing music, chit-chatting, getting to know people's musical tastes and what they like to listen to. I think you would agree, Maura. I've become more and more tired of wrestling discourse and its many, many forms.
Oh my God. It sucks. It's terrible. I hate it.
That puts it mildly. Yes.
I will. One of the big reasons that I got into wrestling was because I was tired of music discourse. And now it's the reverse. It's like I don't know. Somebody threw the Uno reverse card at my sentiments. And yeah, I'm very tired. But I'm glad to be here and talking about music with you and getting away from the discourse. And it's the best way to get away from discourse is to create your own discussions, not discourse necessarily, but discussions about things that, like you said, you're passionate about and that you're excited to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just increasingly turning away from that stuff and doing other things with my time. I've been reading a lot more books. I'm not posting on Twitter anymore. I'm watching The Good Wife for the first time. That's a lot of fun.
Cool.
So, like you said, this can be a nice oasis from the discourse. And that was what the old show was, too, in a lot of ways. This was never a big hot take zone or whatever, but now I'm really going casual with this thing here, Maura, so we'll have some fun, I think. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. But how are you? How have things been for you since the last time you were on the show?
Oh, gosh. I'm good. I'm teaching. I'm covering shows. I went to Newport Jazz Fest earlier this month, and that was really fun. That was my first time. And I saw Missy Elliott over the weekend, and that was a freaking great show. Anybody listening to this, if she's coming to your town, go, because it's like the most high octane 75 minutes that you'll ever experience, and it's just great. I just was home visiting with my nephew, who has, he's developing his own musical taste. He's 7, and he has a little summertime playlist that's very exciting. He likes that Shabuzi song. He really likes Texas Hold'em by Beyonce. So that's pretty cool. And and next week I'm going to Portland for this conference that is having its final hurrah that I never got to go to until now, because I always love, like it's like me and the HBO shows, always come in at the end, watch that last episode, and then I'm like, cool, I have experienced this. But no, I'm really excited about this conference. It's called XOXO, and it's for like creators. It's a lot of like old school internet people will be there, so I got a lot of Slack messages from people who I haven't seen in person in at least 20 years, so that's kind of exciting. So it should be good. And then school starts the day I get back. So
that's right. Yeah,
right into it. Yeah,
almost that time of year again. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy.
Well, I was teaching this summer too, but it was a little different because it was all online asynchronous. So it was all just like post stuff to the learning management system at the university where I teach. It's called Canvas, and so it was very weird because I knew the names of my students, and I knew their music taste in the case of teaching the music class, but didn't really know like what their voices sounded like or anything. So
Did you a few weeks ago, did you see the Foo Fighters at Fenway by any chance?
I did not.
Okay,
I don't remember why. Somebody else covered that. The only show that I've been to at Fenway this summer is Kane Brown, the country singer. And he was pretty good. That was the show. Oh my gosh. That was the show. So Kane Brown, he's this country singer. He's very like genre agnostic though. He came up in country, but he's worked with like Marshmello, and like he has like a lot of sort of hip hop elements in his songs and R&B. And this show, he did a lot of rock reworkings of his songs, which I guess is, a thing in country now, but he's very charming and he pulled it off. But there was this one song near the end of the set, and it was the staging was all about like pyrotechnics. Like there were these huge like columns of fire spurting up from the stage, and at the top of the 2 scaffolds that flanked the stage that had like the video screens and stuff, there were also pyrotechnic elements. And so the song ended, and the lights went down, and it was like longer than the normal between song beat, and everyone was like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, like, sort of everybody's gaze tracked up to audience right, the scaffold, and the pyrotechnic element at the top of that scaffold had not gone out completely. So a firefighter had to like climb up the scaffold and put it out. Yeah. So that was like my interesting concert experience. That was the first time that's ever happened to me too, which I'm like, it's nice that I can still have like firsts at concerts after, going to so many for so long. But yeah, and then Newport Jazz Fest, I got to see Andre 3000's flute ensemble, like, free jazz ensemble, and that was
right,
cool.
The flute thing, yeah.
Yeah,
and Elvis Costello as well. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was really good. I saw Dinner Party, which is this kind of super group of Ninth Wonder, the saxophone player Kamasai Washington, the multi-instrumentalist Terrace Martin, and the piano player and keyboardist Robert Glasper. And they were just great. I really love their records, and like seeing them live, it's just really cool to see like a bunch of musicians who don't play together all the time, but when they do, they just gel really well. So that was cool. And then what else? Yeah, I went to some cool restaurants around Boston these past couple of weeks. My friend writes for the site The Infatuation, which is a great resource if you're interested in dining around any major city. And we went to this place called the Red Fox in the North End, which is like, it's in this nondescript office building in the basement. And then you go in and it's like this sort of like old school Italian supper club. And it's really cool. And they have very good drinks, including an olive oil martini that is garnished with Parmesan cheese.
Wow. Well, my big excitement for the summer was, again, The Good Wife. So I think you got me beat there, Maura. You got me beat there. But anyway, let's get to this episode here. This is the first episode of the new format. I figured it'd be appropriate. The topic would be in-ring debuts. Woo. And that means songs from an artist or band's debut album. See how it works? Very, very simple. Maybe too simple, some might say. But yeah, the debut album, arguably the most important album in someone's catalog. It can go in a number of different ways. You've either got the home run album, just right out of the gate, lets people know there's a new star in town. There's the low-key debut, where it doesn't really get much traction at all, and you have to build up from there. You have the debut album that sets the tone, no pun intended, for what you sound like and what your sound's going to be. Or the album that, looking back, sounds very different from what you would become. I think famously, the first Ministry album is, fake British synth pop. It sounds nothing like the industrial metal that they would become later on. And there are plenty more examples where that came from, Maura. So debut albums, like I said, a very important step in an artist's career.
Absolutely. And sometimes, the way that they, capture a certain band at a certain time, it's just a beautiful thing. You have other acts like they have their debut and then that's it. And you're like, wow, that was just one moment in time that was absolutely beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And that kind of lines up in a way with wrestling too, I think.
Yeah.
Some guys, they debut and they get it right away, or they get pushed to the moon very quickly. You think of like a Kurt Angle or a Brock Lesnar, or right now in All Japan with Yuma Anzai, who's very much a prodigy in a lot of ways. And then there are some guys who take years and years and years to break through or become great, and some never do either at all in their careers. So, it's there's hope at the start there, and you never know where it's going to lead you, I think, Maura.
I think that's a good way of putting it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into it here. The way this is going to work, we're going to go back and forth, playing snippets of the songs we picked, about a minute long each, and just talking a little bit about them afterwards, about the bands and those albums in general, maybe. Again, very simple and straightforward. Now, Maura, you have 10 picks, I have 10 picks. It's very simple right there. And I figured you're the guest, so why don't you start first?
Sure. So my first pick is an artist that I have had a long relationship with, a complicated relationship with, because of her transgressive nature, and in part because of my mom's very stringent Catholicism. This is a song this is an artist that I saw live for the very first time in January, and this song turned 40 last year. It's from the debut album by Madonna, and I think it's one of the first Madonna songs that I ever heard. I definitely remember the video where she's on the street dancing and writhing, and also this song is great in the format that we're going to hear, but also there's a 12-inch remix by her longtime collaborator Jelly Bean Benitez that is incredible, and it's a lot more new wavy and weird. It has like those sort of like new wave like squiggles of keyboard all throughout, but this version rolls too. So if you have not guessed already, this is Burning Up by Madonna, and she did kind of a punky version of it when I saw her in concert in January, and it was great, but the original recording is also awesome. So hit it.
go. Good stuff.
So good. The guitars, the really just like, very punchy instrumentation that just sort of drives home the message of desire. And I love Madonna's voice. I love how her voice had that kind of like Striver's energy that marked so much of her early work and marked like how she, became such a famous person in the 80s and, is still pretty famous today. But yeah, I think that song is just fantastic. And it still sounds great, 40 years later. And there's a lot of stuff from that era that sounds very dated, whether it's your AOR or like your, early new romantic stuff. But this, you could slide this in, to a sort of mix of Gen Zers and they might think that it's recent, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to slip songs into people's repertoire, but,
Maura, the influencer, right there. Yeah, yeah. But Lucky Star on this album as well. Borderline, yep. Holiday. This was a big one. This is a big debut.
Yeah,
and a big album for dance music in general, I think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's its timing was also just so perfect because it came out just as MTV was sort of really, really starting to take off. And Madonna was definitely one of the ultimate MTV artists in its early days. You had her, you had Duran Duran, you had Michael Jackson, you had Prince, and they were sort of like the holy foursome of acts that had great pop songs, but also great televisual instincts.
Mm-hmm. It's also, this era, one of my favorite Madonna looks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Her on the cover with the Tony Storm hair and the bracelets. Very, very Jersey Girl Next Door. I think that and the Ray of Light era, those are my two favorite Madonna looks, I suppose.
The long and the short of it, too.
Yeah,
she has the streaming tresses on the Ray of Light cover and then really short. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that there were scores of young women who called themselves Madonna wannabes. There's a reason that when after I had my Holy Communion in 1982 and I had little white lace gloves, I cut the fingers off and colored in the flowers because and I bought rubber bracelets and all that stuff. I mean, it was this really kind of interesting hybrid of the punk looks and the looks that were getting people into places like Danceteria at the time as well.
Mm-hmm, for sure. All right, well, I'm actually going to go in chronological order with my list here.
Oh, nice.
And,
okay.
I'm going to start off back in 1969 with everyone's favorite genre of music, progressive rock. Yes. We all know it. We all love it. And one of the earliest prog rock albums is also arguably the most influential, I think. This is a band called King Crimson. And they put out their debut album called In the Court of the Crimson King. It's got a very famous cover with the screaming guy in the front, the big face. And I picked side 1, track 1. This is 21st Century Schizoid Man. So that song is 7 minutes and 24 seconds of just Vietnam War era jazz fusion metal craziness. And it's still only the 4th longest song on the album out of 5.
Yeah.
There's I Talk to the Wind, which is 6:05, Schizoid Man, Epitaph, which is a great song at 8:47, Court of the Crimson King is 9:25, and then Moonchild, which is 12:13, and most of that is just free-form improv bullshit. So you can really see Maura where the cliche of really long prog rock songs came from, I think, with this album.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, you know, like, honestly, something that heavy. I mean, I'm always so, like, thrilled when, like, stuff that's older gets just so, like, heavy and leaden in a good way. And that song, just the way that it's kind of this cacophony of sludge with, you know, really melodic sludge, but it sounds just fantastic.
Yeah, this is like right in that time period of Black Sabbath's debut. You know, Zeppelin's kicking off, Deep Purple are really starting to kick off as well. And King Crimson, while never really reaching the financial heights of those other bands, I don't think, they really let their mark with this specific style of music. I know.
Absolutely.
I just finished reading a Peter Gabriel biography, and they talk about how Genesis were heavily inspired by this album, and he worked a lot with Robert Fripp in his singles career as well. Did Peter Gabriel. So yeah, this was a big, you know, a big foundation layer for the genre of prog rock, and just a great album in general, I think. Yeah,
definitely. It's like entrance music for prog rock as an idea, right?
Yes. Good job there, Maura. Yeah, and it's also yeah, it's also Greg Lake's first big band, and rest in peace to Greg Lake on vocals as well. Yeah. But what's next for you there, Maura?
Well, next I'm shouting out my home neighborhood of Allston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, baby.
I actually think that this song was probably written like down the block from where I live. Actually, I know it was because there is a little plaque on this apartment building shouting out this particular band that played actually across the street from the apartment before I moved here, unfortunately. But I did watch the live stream of it when it happened in 2011 or 12, I forget which. But it is from the self-titled debut by Aerosmith, which came out back in 1973. This is a song that I actually heard first as a cover because I hadn't really gotten into Aerosmith when GNR Lies came out. And on GNR Lies, on the live side, there is a cover of the song Mamakin by Aerosmith. And, you know, then I got into Aerosmith. They wound up actually being my second concert ever. And I love this song. I mean, I feel like this record, this Aerosmith album is very tight. And then, you know, they obviously had their other sort of more indulgent forays, which, you know, Rocks was kind of this incredible, like the critic Chuck Eddy like says that it helped invent dub punk, and I don't think he's entirely wrong. But this record, the first Aerosmith record, is, I just think, a great kind of opening gambit from a band that just like wants to bust out of the then crappy, not anymore, part of Boston and take over the world, which they did. And then they just had to break up because Steven Tyler's voice is still not at 100%, which is sad. So they're not playing the New Year's Eve show at TD Garden. So that date's open now. If anybody wants to play New Year's Eve at TD Garden, you got a chance. This is your big chance. Anyway, this is Mamakin from Aerosmith's 1973 debut. Sorry, I have a lot to say about Aerosmith. So.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Here we go. Yeah, and this album, this debut, also has Dream On, of course. It's got Make It, Walking the Dog. And the thing I always kicks me about this album is Steven Tyler's voice.
Yeah, it's so different, right?
He does not sound like the other albums. He sounds like in his words, like Kermit the Frog, like a Muppet, you know? And this debut album was not a success either when it came out. I know the band hated the producer, Adrian Barber. They were scared. They didn't know what they were doing pretty much. You know, this was their first album. Of course they would be scared. And that's why Steven changed his voice, I think, to sound more like a blues singer. So it's funny how an album with, you know, two of their biggest hits, including probably the biggest hit with Dream On, did not, you know, really make an impact. And then later on with, you know, Get Your Wings and Toys in the Attic, then Rocks, then that's when they start to bring up speed. And then they re-release Dream On as a single, and that's when it really takes off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but that's. I feel like that's so the, you know, journey of a lot of songs. Certainly, even today. I mean, another song that we're going to talk about later had that kind of journey. You know, these past decades, and so it's interesting. I actually also love "Moving Out," which is on this record too, and that's because I really like a gentrification song about the neighborhood that I live in from like 40 years, you know, from 50 years ago now, I guess. But I feel like this is it's just such a great little track. And the fact that Guns N' Roses covered it, I think, is very significant because it is like kind of this, you know, dirtbag lifestyle song, but it also like has like a nice little groove, which Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses and Joey Kramer, the drummer of Aerosmith, also navigated very well over the years. And I just feel like it's very, I don't know, whenever I hear it, I just want to like kind of start dancing and like swaying around when Steven Tyler does those elongated vowels. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. It's so sad to hear that the band is retiring because of his voice not being able to fully recover. I have a coworker. She is a very big Aerosmith fan, and I'm a big fan of them too, but she has a tattoo of their logo on her shoulder. Wow. And, you know, we were at work when the news broke because we work in the news, and she was, you know, pretty upset by it. So it does suck that it has to end like that. But if you can't sing, you can't sing. I'd rather he not try to sing through the pain than
totally. And you know that they'd want to do like a big blowout thing for their last tour. Certainly when I saw them at Fenway in 2022, you know, they were definitely going for the big swings, and you had Steven Tyler performing on top of the Green Monster at one point, which was really cool.
All right, I'm next with my second pick here, and I'm going to bring this one up to 1978.
All right.
And this is an album that I guarantee you, Maura, know every song on this one. Ooh. I'm pretty sure everyone listening would know every song on this album. We've got a band named after two of their members, who happen to be brothers, two brothers. You've also got a guy with two first names, and Bugs Bunny as the lead singer and the front man here. If you haven't guessed it yet, I'm talking about the mighty Van Halen, who put out their debut album Van Halen, or Van Halen 1 as it's also called, in 78. And I could pick any number of tracks here: Eruption, Running with the Devil, You Really Got Me, Jamie's Crying, Feel Your Love Tonight. I could go on and on and on, but I decided to go with this song, and it's just killer riff from the jump. This is Ain't Talkin' 'Bout Love.
Oh, yes.
All about your disease.
you talk about just the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Where you've got the right front man, you've got the right guitarist, you've got the right rhythm section, you've got the right producer in Ted Templeman, and the right songs, and you've got a monster on your hands. And this is a monster of an album. We talked about like the albums that maybe don't really make much of an impact at first. No, this is a moonshot right out of the gate there, Maura.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I like David Lee Roth was just such a formative influence on me as a personality. It's kind of weird to say that but he really his theatricality, and I do feel like, it is that perfect storm. I also think that you can't overlook the vocal harmonies, which I think set Van Halen apart from a lot of their contemporaries, even with, obviously the incredible virtuosic playing of the Van Halen brothers. But those harmonies really give their songs, even the sort of more loose ones, a sweetness that I think is really important, and a funness. Like Van Halen, they are a fun band, even though obviously they had tons of interpersonal problems that plagued them, throughout. Certainly, I feel like David Lee Roth was definitely one of the first major artists to get what I call lead singer syndrome, which was something, it's kind of like the story of the video for No Doubts Don't Speak, where because of the nature of the music video medium, the singer gets a lot more attention than the other members of the band, and it creates friction. And then obviously David Lee Roth went solo and tried to rejoin the band over and over again. I actually saw them at Cafe Wa in Greenwich Village, which is this underground like club that's been around since the 50s, and it was owned by Uncle Manny. It was owned by David Lee Roth's uncle.
Yeah.
And he would go there and watch musicians audition for his uncle, and that was sort of he talked a lot about how that was where he learned a lot about like what works and what doesn't on stage as a kid. But I just think that they were just such a force, and that run of records is really kind of incredible when you think back on it, that it happened, and then that they had their pop breakthrough, and then they kind of had their implosion. But yeah, I love that. I love the harmonies. The harmonies are always what stick with me with Van Halen, just because I feel like they make it more than just like a sort of showcase band, because you can have some acts that are very like, oh, here are a lot of good players, but like if it doesn't gel together properly, it just comes off like really wanky. And other bands definitely learned from Van Halen's example. Certainly Extreme learned from Van Halen's example on that level, and obviously there's an irony that to me citing Extreme when I'm talking about Van Halen because of the Van Halen 3 thing. But yeah.
Oh yes. Well, the less said about that, the better. I think.
Less said about yeah. I just wanted to, but I had to nod to it because if I didn't, somebody was going to be like, "Why'd you talk about Extreme with Van Halen?" So I had to. No discourse allowed.
No. Yeah, but the backing vocals and the harmonies, that's primarily Michael Anthony. That's his bread and butter. Besides the bass stuff, for sure. It's funny. I also read Ted Templeman's book a few months ago, where he talked about the difficulties of recording Dave's vocals. This guy's not a good singer. I can't deal with this stuff. But if you listen to the albums, he sounds amazing. And not just this one, but all the albums really. And live is a different story, especially during those reunion tours in the later years. But I think studio wise, Ted was able to really just hone in on not just Dave's vocals at their best, but also his patter, his charisma, his just, showmanship in audio form. He does a great job of really, getting the best out of Dave and the band in general, I think, Maura.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like he sounds like the greatest top-hatted and tails showman, that's also like going to wear a spandex tuxedo.
He's a man of multitudes.
He contains so many multitudes. His drawings on Instagram rather. He puts up cartoons on Instagram. He's the total package.
And R.I.P. Eddie. Again, R.I.P.
Yeah.
To one of the best of all time, for sure.
Definitely.
All right, Maura, what is your next pick?
Well, this is a total change of pace. This is from the 1993 debut album by the California band Tiger Trap. They were one of the bigger bands of early 90s twee pop. They put out their debut album on K Records, which at the time was a big kind of Northwest scene. A lot of the acts that were kind of adjacent to the Olympia, Washington riot girl scene and the punk scene of the Pacific Northwest they would host this conference, this like kind of they called it a convention. It was really like a festival with multi days and shows called International Pop Underground, and it was run by this guy Calvin Johnson, who was in this band Beat Happening, which was very influential on as far as minimalist, bare bones, punky yet not harsh independent music. And he produced actually the Tiger Trap album, and I love this record so much. I listened to it so much. It came out the like a month before I graduated from high school, and I fell in love with it because it has this kind of like blend of, again, vocal harmonies, really kind of just like great surfy riffs, but also Rose Melberg, who's the lead singer, she has this kind of just amazing delivery of her vocals, and she can express these kind of like simple heartbreaks in beautiful ways. And so this song is called You're Sleeping. It's the second track on Tiger Trap's self-titled debut.
I think twee pop is a good descriptor of the genre. I think it sounds like an album made entirely up of Zooey Deschanel's.
Oh no! So. Well, it's a little more ragged than that.
It's very adorable. Yeah. Very adorable. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think what I like about Tiger Trap so much is that they kind of had that very raucous college rock energy, but they applied it in these very emotional and very kind of like directly emotional ways. Rose Melberg is just incredible as a singer and lyricist, and she's only gotten better. After Tiger Trap broke up, they kind of broke up very abruptly in the early 90s, and she went on to form a duo called the Softies with a friend of hers named Jen Spragia, and it's very spare. It's actually just vocals and guitar, and Jen is like a guitar genius, and she's a big Lita Ford fan, and she would talk about how she loved listening to metal, but it would be in service of this very kind of like quiet, even quieter, because Tiger Trap obviously has that kind of shambolic nature to it with it's a 4-piece, and the Softies they just reunited, and I'm actually going to go see them next weekend in Portland, so I'm really excited because I've only seen Rose Melberg live once, but and I should also note, so K Records was the label that Kurt Cobain had their logo tattooed on his arm. And yeah, I mean, I just have such an affection for a lot of that scene. That was really what got me into, independent music that was not male centric, and Tiger Trap was definitely a big part of that. So it was like, Bikini Kill and Bratmobile, but those bands were a lot harsher, where Tiger Trap took on the idea of what Jenny Toomey once said, where she said, I think punk means cuddle. And certainly Tiger Trap and this song definitely epitomized that. Jenny Toomey was in a band called Tsunami, and she also is a bigwig at the Future of Music Coalition, which is an organization that sort of looks at how musicians can be working professionals in a very chaotic environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had never heard of Tiger Trap before you sent me the song on your list here, or K Records. But I did look up, they put out albums by Beck, Modest Mouse, Built to Spill. I've heard of those people, of course. But yeah, that was entirely new to me. So, and I enjoyed it too. So it was
cool.
A delightful time there.
Oh, good. Yeah, definitely. Rose Melberg. Also, her cover of Thin Lizzy's Jailbreak is awesome. So definitely worth checking out.
Tonight there's gonna be a jailbreak.
No, it's very fun. It's very like peppy. It's good. I tease.
Okay. I'm going to stick with 1978 for my next pick here. This album came out just a few months after Van Halen 1, and it's another album where every song is pretty much a hit, I think. And like Aerosmith, this band is from Boston, our neck of the woods. They're not as sexy or sleek or badass as Aerosmith. They're a bit dorkier than that, but they've got a smorgasbord of hits, a bunch of them from this album. And I'm talking about The Cars with their self-titled debut album. This is You're All I've Got Tonight.
I don't care if you used me again. I don't care if you abuse me again. Oh, you can make me, I don't care. And you can fake me, I don't care. And you can love me just about anywhere. It's alright.
Just What I Needed. Great song. Just What I Needed is on this album. My Best Friend's Girl, Don't Just Stop, Good Times Roll, Moving in Stereo, All Shook Up. It just goes on and on and on there. And you mentioned, Van Halen being such a fun party band. I think the Cars also helped bring rock and roll back to the light in a lot of ways after just such a dirgy decade of darkness of the 70s in a lot of ways. I think this was such a fun album. And you've got Roy Thomas Baker as the producer, who was with Queen and Foreigner and Cheap Trick and Devo. So again, the right combination of songs and players and the producer to really make a classic album here. Yeah,
that song, it's so potent too, and it's so like punchy, right? I mean, it's one of those songs that just really has everything has a purpose, and there's no fat on it. It's very kind of just all driving to that sing-along chorus that's just so gooey and awesome. Sorry, I will say, like, I want to let everyone know I'm getting surprised with these songs here. Like, Andrew knows my picks, so I'm getting surprised. I apologize if I'm not 100% literate, because sometimes the songs are just so good where I'm just like, man, I just want to say that this song is awesome, because it is, And I feel like the Cars, like, I was talking earlier about how, like, Van Halen was one of those bands that even with the, David Lee Roth getting lead singer syndrome thing, a lot of rock bands did not transition to the 80s well. But the Cars did, because their sound was so few, it was power pop, which was obviously like percolating all over the place, but it had like a kind of very next generation feel to it, that I think served them well when they had to start being on camera and not just on record.
Yeah, and they pretty much lasted almost all throughout the 80s until the end there, and sadly, again, R.I.P. to Benjamin Orr and Rick Ocasek. Both of the lead singers there are gone, which is just, it's a shame, because bands, they're so well known, but a lot of times by their frontman. And this was a case where you had two, pretty much. Of course, Rick was the main guy, but Ben Orr as well. Drive is such a classic song.
Yeah.
You know, he's such a great vocalist in his own right, and to see both of them go is just, it's horrendous.
Yeah, it's really sad. A huge loss for Boston, obviously.
All right, can you pick us back up there, Maura?
Sure, although this song is also very longing. But yeah, this is a song from an album that came out back in 2000. The record kind of came out in the US in 2000, but it mostly was a UK hit. And this came out when I was in my, oh my gosh, I just got the internet, and there are people talking about music that aren't just Grateful Dead fans that I can talk to online. And so I found out about this group from my good friend Tom Ewing, who currently runs a site called Freaky Trigger, and he does this great retrospective look at the UK number ones called Popular. He's been doing it. He was actually, Tom Brian does the number ones for Stereogum, but Tom Ewing was the innovator in the let's look at every number one in history project. And he's a great pop thinker. He's definitely shaped me, but he knows what I like. And he sent me this song back when, it took like half an hour to download a song. And it is from the album One Touch, which came out back in 2000 in the UK. And then it came out about a year later in the US. It came out and nobody bought it. And so my friend who worked at the label actually sent me a box of CDs to just give to my friends because I was such an evangelist for this album. So if you still have one of those copies of One Touch out there, guys, let me know. But this is the group Sugar Babes. And I'll explain more about Sugar Babes and their sort of progression over the last 24 years after the song.
They've got a weird history, yeah.
They have a crazy history. But the original members are back together and they are known as Sugar Babes now. And this song still is just absolutely killer. So this is Overload from Sugar Babes.
Imagination's playing around for free. In my world, I'll take him out for tea. Oh my God, you can't say no. Skipping school, gonna walk for air. I just had to get out of there. I'm on overload in my head. Train comes, I don't know its destination. It's a one-way ticket to a madman situation. Train comes, I don't know its destination. It's a one-way ticket to a madman situation. Life in a dream, time does come true. And in my sleep, I think.
So, Maura, please explain the Sugar Babes to the unknowing audience out there of probably Americans mostly who don't know who these people are.
Totally, yeah. So Sugar Babes were, originally it was Mutya Buena, Keisha Buchanan, and Siobhan Donaghy. They were they were formed by the manager of the girl group All Saints. And they put out One Touch in 2000, and it was really, really, just such a great record. And then Siobhan Donaghy was replaced by the singer Heidi Range in 2001. And in 2002, they put out a record called Angels with Dirty Faces. And that record was probably their biggest, commercial breakthrough, even bigger than, because they definitely got buzz with One Touch. But the first single from Angels with Dirty Faces was Freak Like Me. And this was, 2002. So it was the height of what was then called the bootleg era, which are now known as mashups. And one DJ had mashed up Gary Newman's Our Friends Electric with Freak Like Me by Adina Howard. And it was the producer Richard X, who's actually one of the best pop producers out there, works a lot with this artist Annie, who I really like. And so this bootleg, this bootleg that was called, I think it was called We Don't Give We Don't Give a Damn About Our Friends was the name of the bootleg. But then Richard X turned around and offered the song to Sugar Babes, and so they performed the mashup on their record, and it sounded really good. So then, let's see. They've had so many members, and so then Heidi Range stayed in the band, and then Mutya left in 2006 to go solo, and she was replaced by Amel Buranba, and that was sort of the main. That was sort of, the group until 2010. And then Jade Ewan came in, and then everything stopped. And then what happened was in like 2012 or 13, Keisha, Mutya, and Siobhan got back together. And they were actually known as MKS, Mutya, Keisha, Siobhan. And from some legal wranglings and stuff, they got the Sugar Babes name back, and now they're touring as Sugar Babes. Maybe they'll finally tour the States. I don't know. But yeah, they've been playing like festivals in Europe and stuff. And also, like, Siobhan Donaghy, her second solo album, Ghosts, is like one of the great lost pop records of the 2000s. If you are a big fan of like Kate Bush or Peter Gabriel-ish stuff, like, I'd recommend checking it out. I think it's a really interesting, forward-thinking pop record that was probably about 16 years ahead of its time. And I think that about, One Touch, too. I feel like One Touch was this really great triangulation of, like, a lot of things that were going on in the charts. You have the kind of blippy yet soulful R&B. They had like a little two-step song. They had some very nice kind of acoustic guitar soul ballads. And they're obviously, again, I know that I've talked about vocal harmonies a lot on this episode, but the harmonies that the three of them have are just so wonderful. And like when they came back in 2013 with the song Flatline, that was their like first piece of recorded music, Mutya, Keisha, and Siobhan since One Touch, like just hearing their voices meld together, it just like created such a feeling inside me, because I feel like they all have these really unique timbres and registers that just mesh very well together.
Yeah, they're one of those groups, much like a Robbie Williams, where they are just huge in the UK, but they never cross over to the States.
Yeah.
Unlike the Spice Girls, who very much did.
Right. Right.
And I had never even heard of them until I started watching on YouTube episodes of Nevermind the Buzzcocks. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
They had mentioned Sugar Babes, play a few songs, and I'm like, who are these people? I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
And then a few months ago, maybe it was you, I don't know, someone in our music league put Freak Like Me as one of the songs in one of the
that
weeks.
was me.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I figured it was. I just didn't know for sure or remember. But I was like, this song is pretty damn good. Yeah. And I love Our Friends Electric as well, the original version. And I was like, this is a pretty catchy damn song. And this song as well, had my toes a tapping there, Maura. So, is Sugar Babes a band that will one day conquer the States finally? I don't think so, unfortunately, but I think they're a band who is ripe for discovery.
Yeah,
especially over here in America.
They might have their Murder on the Dance Floor moment. You never know, because Murder on the Dance Floor was from that era. That was the sort of pop era that, that whole British... I wasn't very into like all the stuff going on in the States, the New York stuff. But I loved the British pop singers. The glossier, the better.
Well, never say never. I guess you're right there.
Yeah.
Okay. My next pick is my first pick from the 80s. And this is from 1982. And I have a supergroup for us to talk about there, Maura.
Right.
And not just that, a prog rock supergroup.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We've got John Wetton from King Crimson and UK. We've got Steve Howe from Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Jeff Downes from Yes and the Buggles. And we've got Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Put them all together in a nice little meaty stew, and you've got Asia.
Yeah.
And you've also got a #1 album. This was a top of the charts hit album here with Heat of the Moment and Soul Survivor, Only Time Will Tell. And I went with one of the deeper cuts on this bad boy here. So off of their self-titled debut from '82, this is Asia with Time Again.
Fate looks certain, but then nothing's guaranteed. Want for nothing, but is nothing what you need. Always pushing, though you're never satisfied. I did believe you till I found out that you lied. Time and time again. Time and time again.
Oh, the goodness right there. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And look, I've heard the insults, corporate rock, banned by design. I do not care because I genuinely love Asia. I love the hits. I love the deeper cuts, the old albums, the later albums when they reunited with the classic lineup. You know, I'm a simp for Asia, Maura. What can I say? I enjoy them so much. And sadly, I keep picking dead people because... sadly, John Wetton passed away a few years ago,
Yeah.
but he'll live on with these songs and all those other bands, Roxy Music and Wishbone Ash and Uriah Heep. So, you know, I love, as a genre, I love, you know, the classic, lengthy, you know, epic prog rock stuff, but the poppier stuff too, the more straightforward arena rock, prog rock, like you hear with Asia, I love that too. So,
Totally.
this is great stuff. And Time Again, it's a deep cut, but it's also a pretty damn good song.
Yeah, my mind immediately conjured up this image of just like a studio filled with like synths and keyboards and just like piled up. And then there's that instrumental break where it sounds like things are just like, I pictured like all the synths starting to like fall, you know,
Yes,
and
yes.
it's so great. It's a really nice kind of puncturing of the grandiosity of it. It's really cool. No, that was good. I had never. I will admit I am kind of a singles fan of Asia, but I really like that a lot.
Yeah, and again, I stress just the makeup of the group is so strong too, because
Yeah.
it's not just a bunch of random guys. It's a proper super group. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Yes, and to have, you know, Steve Howe in there and Jeff Downs, who was in Yes for an album, and of course the great Carl Palmer as well
Yeah.
on drums from ELP. This was just all four guys humming on the same wavelength, and that initial run was only a couple albums, only a couple years too, with all four original guys. But you know, if you're gonna stick your foot out there, even just for a little bit, make it your best foot.
Might as
you
well
know?
go.
I mean, yeah,
For sure,
yeah, exactly.
for sure.
And I think they did that for sure with this debut album in terms of the quality of their playing, the quality of the songwriting, the catchiness of the hooks. And as well, you know, the business side of it, how well the songs and album did, you know, on the charts. But yeah, so what do you got next for us, Maura?
So next I have a song that was actually a hit 13 years after its release, which was last year. This is from an album that I actually first listened to because during my first semester of teaching at NYU in 2010, on the last day of class, a student came up to me. He'd been interning at Epic Records, and he was like, I think you should hear this record. And I was like, okay, because, you know, this was the pop music journalism class that I teach, so we all kind of get to know each other's tastes. And this student was extremely correct about this record because this artist has become one of my favorite artists over the years. He has not put out a record in 7 years. He had teased an album after the success of this song last year, and then he kind of just went dark on social media, and everyone's wondering where he is. So, Miguel, if you're out there, come back. And this song is Sure Thing. It's from his album All I Want Is You, which came out back in 2010. And it became kind of a TikTok hit, and then it became an actual hit, which was extremely gratifying as somebody who has been beating the Miguel drum. I went to see him once at Joe's Pub, and my friend Michelangelo Matos wrote it up for me when I was editing at the Village Voice, and he said in one, because we had this like little section that was like critical bias, you know, it was all very formatted by the people who were in Denver or Arizona or whatever, and so we had to have critical bias, which was like, you know, a cheeky thing about like our relationship. And he said, I was sitting next to the biggest Miguel fan I know, and that person was me. And I still am one of the biggest Miguel fans. Not as big as PT Cruiser USA out on Twitter, who, what's up, PT Cruiser USA? I hope you're doing well. But definitely, I think that he is one of the greatest artists to come out of the last 15 years. So yeah, this is Miguel with Sure Thing.
You could bet that, never gotta sweat that. You could bet that, never gotta sweat that. You could bet that, never gotta sweat that.
I be the fighter, baby. If I'm the blunt, you could be the lighter, baby. Fire it up, writer, baby. You could be the quote. If I'm the lyric, baby, you could be the note. Chord that saint on my center. Eyes, I'm a winner, and it's you. What did I do to deserve that? Paper, baby, I be the pen. Say I am the one, 'cause you are a 10. Really not pretend, even when the sky gets hard, even when the sun don't shine. I got faith in you and I. So put your pretty little hand in. Even when I'm down to the wire, even when the blue won't shine. We can do it, baby, slip it away.
Sultry, Maura. Very, very sultry
So
there.
good. Oh, I love this record so much. It's so interesting because, like, obviously this is very much like, you know, an R&B song. Although I do think it does have, you know, kind of more neo-soul tendencies. I mean, Miguel has been somebody who I feel like he was definitely the victim of a lot of the chaos in the music industry in the late 2000s, which resulted in a lot of R&B, particularly artists that were operating in the R&B and hip hop spaces, kind of having their records like shelved or just like put on the back burner for a long while. Missy Elliott had that happen to her. A. Marie had that happen to her. And then, you know, this record finally came out in 2010 after Miguel had been like writing songs for other artists like Usher and Jaheim and Asher Roth. And I just feel like this record is it's such a audacious debut because it is really just like his vision, you know, and obviously it's shapeshifted over the years, but he's not somebody who you can really put in a box. And I feel like that's why, you know, his success in 2023 was kind of inevitable, right? Because like definitely if you look at the charts now, with the rise of digital distribution and sort of radio station programmers and, you know, MTV programmers obviously are just a very bygone force, but their influence has been very diminished and people just are looking for music that responds to them. And Sure Thing, you know, I mean, it is like this great love song. It is one of those classic ideas where it's just like, I'm going to think of every metaphor I can about how much I love you and put it in a song. And I feel like I've always felt like kind of that Miguel is ahead of his time. Certainly this record, and then the record that followed this, Kaleidoscope Dream, is just like an absolute masterpiece, as is Wild Heart, the third record that he put out. But he is just somebody who bristles against categorization, and when the music industry is in its sort of more conservative modes of everything has to be this genre or that genre, or, you know, you have to emulate the success. Artists like him, you can, you know, unfairly get overlooked by machines. The fact that I feel like the way that Sure Thing kind of just came into its own last year. I mean, it was one of my favorite things about last year. Like across, like I'm talking about like experiences, you know, because it was just so nice to see him finally getting his flowers on this sort of wide scale.
Yeah, this is not my main cup of tea, so I never heard of Miguel or this song, but I did look it up, and when it came out in 2010, this went to number 1 on the R&B charts.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of went away, but then it started, like you said, getting big on TikTok lately, and it got back in the Billboard 100, and it actually charted even higher than it did the first time.
Yep.
because back then it was 36 in the charts, and then it got up to 11 last year.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the power of social media and the power of TikTok just latching on to a song. This is clear-cut evidence to a T there.
For sure. And, like, you know, I mean, obviously the chart formulations are different now than they were in 2010. Because now you count streams, you count YouTube hits.
Yeah.
You count, you know, a lot of things that didn't count. And, you know, single sales count for a lot, but they were very marginalized back then. Certainly, I feel like people would buy digital music, but it wouldn't be as much of a thing unless there was like a concerted effort or was like an American Idol type thing where it was like, go and buy the new Kelly Clarkson song because now that she just won, so go buy the song, and everyone does it. But with streaming, it is a lot more possible. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is like it's also possible to cultivate these more casual fans that, you know, might not listen to the whole record or go to the show hoping to hear anything that's not the viral hit. But at the same time, you know, it does allow for more discovery in an organic sense, and like people following playlists or following, you know, you may like this tabs or something. So it's interesting. I mean, I will say, like, Chris Melaniphy, who writes for Slate, he's a great person who talks about charts and their mechanisms and how they've changed over the years, and I totally recommend anyone who's interested in that kind of metric stuff and how it portrays the current music landscape, read his stuff. He's a genius and a great person. And also his book on Old Town Road is really good and actually kind of distills the whole ways in which viral songs happen in a very readable, immediate way.
Mm-hmm. Well, my next pick is a bit different from Old Town Road. This is also from 1982. I had played with Asia. I had played a band featuring Jeff Downs from the Buggles. Well, my next pick is the other guy from the Buggles at the producer's chair. This is Trevor Horn, and Trevor Horn produced a lot of big bands. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Grace Jones, Seal, 8 million other people, I think. But he also produced the debut album for a band with 3 letters called ABC.
Yes. Oh, man. Awesome.
And ABC, their debut album, is called The Lexicon of Love.
So good.
And it's a pretty damn great debut, if I do say so myself. And again, a good selection of tracks to choose from here. Tears Are Not Enough, The Look of Love, All of My Heart. I went with one of the other big singles off this one. This is Poison Arrow.
Yes.
If I were to say to you, can you keep a secret? Would you know just what to do or where to keep it? Then I say I love you, foul a situation. Hey girl, I thought we were the right combination. Who broke my heart? You did. Hold to the target, blame you did. You think you're smart, stupid. Shoot that poison arrow through my heart. Shoot that poison arrow. Shoot that poison arrow through my heart. Shoot that poison arrow. No rhythm in cymbals, no tempo in drums. Love on arrival, she comes when she comes. Right on the target, but wide of the mark. What I thought was
So good. I mean, say what you will about
Great.
the bass line alone is fantastic. All the harmonies, again, the keyboards, but just Martin Fry as a singer.
Amazing.
One of the most overlooked singers, I think, of his day. He does not miss a note. He is smooth as silk, and that is evident from, note 1 of the first album. And I had only listened to this album in whole, a few months ago for the first time. I know the big singles, but from start to finish on this whole thing, this is an excellent debut, and a very confident one, and you can't really go wrong with a guy in a nice suit just belting out these lovely tunes with a silky smooth voice and some just real passionate music to back him up as well. So Yeah, ABC, a recommendation for me with Lexicon of Love.
Fantastic song. Great chorus, just like leaps out of the speakers. And yeah, you said it all. You said it all, especially about just the greatness of Martin Fry.
Mm-hmm. And they actually, a few years ago, they put out the Lexicon of Love 2.
Yep.
The sequel album. And
it's pretty good.
And one of the songs on that is a song I've been listening to a lot lately, Viva Love.
Oh, nice.
Which is a very catchy song. And fun fact about that, the music video for that one is like a recreation of the music video for Poison Arrow.
Oh, wow.
That took place in like the opera setting or whatever.
I'll check that
just
out.
like how the album is like the album cover of Lexicon of Love 1, which is the couple dancing on the stage. It's like a mirror image of that for part 2, where it's Martin Fry looking at the couple from the opposite end of the stage. Like it's like a mirror kind of a thing. So just a little fun fact for you there.
Yeah, no, I'll check that out. That's awesome. I didn't know about the video, but I definitely knew about the record. So cool.
Well, what's next for you there, Maura?
So next is what I think a woman who I think is one of the greatest songwriters in country music right now, and this is from her album that came out 19 years ago next month, or was it 19? Wait, hold on. Sorry, it came out 19 years ago. It came out in March of 2005, but this song was released as a single that September. This is the title track from Miranda Lambert's Kerosene.
I'm waiting on the sun to set, 'cause yesterday ain't over yet. I started smoking cigarettes, there's nothing else to do, I guess. Dusty roads ain't made for walking, spinning tires ain't made for stopping. I'm giving up on love, 'cause love's giving up on me. Well, I gave it everything I had, and everything I got was bad. Life ain't hard, but it's too long, living like some country song. Trade truth in for a lie, cheating really ain't a crime.
So awesome. So Miranda Lambert, she was somebody who she had been on that show Nashville Star, which was sort of the I think it was USA Network and their attempt to like ride the American Idol wave, but with a country song. She didn't win, but with a lot of times with those shows, the non-winners have the more interesting careers. And I feel like one thing about this song is that it does bear a lot of resemblance to I Feel Alright by the singer Steve Earle. And Miranda Lambert, to her credit, she copped to it. She's like, you know what, I love that song. I probably internalized it while I was writing it, and she gave him a co-writing credit. But I feel like her lyrics are just so pointed, and over time they've only gotten better as far as like describing the kind of conflicted emotions that people have around love and romance and disappointment. And I just feel like she is such a great interpreter of her own lyrics in a way that makes every emotion that she sings of just like kind of ring out, even if it's like a sort of boot stomping boogie like Kerosene musically boogie, is. Yeah. But yeah, well, this is more stomping than scooting, I think.
Okay.
But but there's still like a lot of sadness in those lyrics. And the fact that the refrain is I'm giving up on love because love's given up on me. Like, that's just like, I guess all I can do now is just like dance my way out of it. So I think it's a really great introduction to Miranda Lambert. And like her whole catalog is just so fantastic. She just keeps putting out these wonderful records that have these like heart-wrenching, casually heart-wrenching songs that are great.
Yeah, well, it's my intro to her because I never listened to her, so yeah. I have a big blank spot when it comes to country. It's like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, and then just all the way down to the rest there. So, but yeah, a very, very good song, I think, from what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, she's good. And like her work with Pistol Annies is really great too. That's the super group that she's in with Ashley Monroe and Angelina Presley. Yeah. And that is like really fun because they get into, a lot of women causing trouble collectively, madness. And they have a nice Christmas record too.
Okay. Well, let's stay in the 80s with my next pick here.
Okay.
This is from 1988. And this band, I think, to most people nowadays, they're the CM Punk band. Because of Cult of Personality. And that was the big hit from this album. But I went with another single off the album. I love this song. The album is called Vivid. And this is Living Colour with Open Letter to a Landlord. Good stuff. Yeah, Cult of Personality, Glamour Boys, funny vibe.
So good.
On this album. I mean, Living Colour, they were a big deal. We're talking about an all-black rock band. Not Boyz II Men, it's not New Edition. These guys are rockers. And they also dabble in metal and funk and hardcore. And they're not the first band of that type to exist. There's Bad Brains, there's Death, but as far as a band like them breaking through on a commercial level into the mainstream, they're pretty much it, and it's amazing too. They're not doing the typical 80s rocker, let's sing about partying and women and having fun times. No, they have something to say. They have messages about politics and race and society. This song in particular is about slums and tearing down old buildings and forcing people to relocate and gentrification and children dying in a fire. Like, it's a pretty heavy song that's just, coated in these really crunchy guitars and nice melodies. So it's a band that has a legacy that is just as important, if not more important, than the music itself there, Maura.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Vivid, and I liked Stain a lot too. And I feel like they were just a band that was, again, great players. This was also like the period when you had like Anthrax collaborating with Public Enemy, and you had, obviously the Beastie Boys kind of spinning off into their own thing. I feel like there's a very New York element to what Living Colour was doing, because a lot of the other bands in that scene were also very kind of like genre melody at a time when genres seemed to be even more stringent than they had been. Certainly, the Eric Weisbard, who's a professor at the University of Alabama, and he was the editor of Spin for a while. He wrote a really great book called Top 40 Democracy, and it's like a history of pop radio in the U.S. And he wrote a great chapter on how rock radio in the early 80s was pretty much just like colonized to the extent of like, they kicked out like Parliament or Earth, Wind and Fire, Sly and the Family Stone, and it became this very kind of like white centric format. And it was, definitely something that I think you saw in certainly the early days of MTV when, they had to have Michael Jackson break the color barrier because he was so great, even though there was also a lot of other great black music happening at the time. But Living Color, I feel like, there was this whole kind of like groove funk metal strain going on, and they were definitely one of the best examples of that. Also, Vernon Reid is like an incredible guitarist, and Corey Glover's voice is like
those two.
So awesome. And I feel like they are one of those bands that, people group them with like extreme or suicidal tendencies and stuff, and I can see why, because again, the idea that like the bass lines weren't just sort of like thudding at the bottom of the mix, and there were actual grooves and not just 4/4 time, but the place that they held in rock was, I think, really important at the time, and the fact that like Cult of Personality, like it's one of the greatest riffs of all time, it just is. So even though like CM Punk can go jump off of whatever, no discourse, sorry, no discourse,
Maura, come on now, we were doing so well.
I know, I'm sorry, but yeah, I think that they were such a great like example of like how pop music and rock music and whatever kind of music you want to call it are at their best when they are just following their own muses and not being cognizant of any boxes that executives or programmers want to put on them. Certainly, like, Miguel is like that too, and I think probably the next song that I'm picking too. So
yeah, I agree. It's a good mindset to have as an artist in general, I think. And I'll also recommend the second album, Time's Up. That's also pretty good. And yeah, and you mentioned, Vernon Reid and Corey Glover. To me, they're in the same group as like Steven Tyler and Joe Perry.
I was gonna say,
or Mick and Keith, where it's like these two guys are the core duo of the band, and without them together, there's really no band. So yeah,
absolutely, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. All right, what's next there, Maura?
So I'm actually also in the 80s now, and I'm talking about one of the artists that I feel like really had one of the songs that defined late 80s pop, but I'm actually going to talk about a song that would go on to define 90s pop. Really, I feel like this is a song that kind of anticipated trip hop, and because it was something that a member of what would go on to be Massive Attack was involved with. So this is Neneh Cherry, and this is from her debut album Raw Like Sushi, and this is called Man Child.
Is it the pain of the drinking or the Sunday sinking feeling? The car never seems to work. When it's late, your girlfriend's on a date, and the hero with her in your dream. In your sleep, seem like you turn around, ask yourself, man child, will you ever win? Man child, look at the state you're in. Could you go undercover and sell your brand new lover? Could you be someone else for a night? Maybe someone else will love you. You'd sell your soul for a tacky song like the ones you hear on the radio. Turn around, ask yourself. Turn around and ask yourself.
So this was the second single from Raw Like Sushi, and it was definitely a 180 from the first single, which was Buffalo Stance, which anybody who's been at a karaoke bar has probably heard at least one version of Buffalo Stance in their life. Buffalo Stance, very hip hop, very kind of like brash and trash talky. And this was kind of the opposite of that. This was very, woozy and synthy and, kind of like unexpected. But I love that song. And it's the second track on the record too. And I feel like, it really kind of automatically tells you like, you're not going to know what to expect from this woman, and you wouldn't. Her records, she has a very sort of scant discography. She put out Raw Like Sushi. She put out a couple of records in the 90s. She covered I've Got You Under My Skin for the first Red Hot and Blue album, and then she did some collaborations with the Swedish free jazz ensemble The Thing, because her dad was a jazz musician, Neneh Cherry. But she did put out a record in, I want to say 2018. Yeah, 2018, called Broken Politics. That definitely is very in line with sonically with Manchild, and I feel like she's one of those artists who spoke so honestly about womanhood, and really kind of, I didn't appreciate the subtleties of her lyrics. Certainly when I first heard them in ninth grade, I was just like, this song is freaking awesome, because I was 14. But I feel like, she's somebody who speaks very well, very potently about what it's like to be a woman, who's operating in this place where you want to love, you want to exist, you want to be a person, and what do you do with the eyes on you and the people who are around you? The whole record is really great. I also love the song Kisses on the Wind, which is a coming of age tale about a young woman who's starting to get noticed by the men around her, and she doesn't really know what to do. And obviously, Buffalo Stance is still incredible. But the whole record, it's got all these different ideas in it. Bars from New Jack Swing, and Neneh Cherry had been in a band called Rip, Rig, and Panic, which was a post-punk band. So that influence is definitely in there. But I just love her. And I got to see her live finally a couple of years ago when she toured. I actually went down to New York to see her on the Broken Politics tour, and I cried. It was just so awesome to hear her voice in person, because it is such a, potent, I know that I've said that word a lot tonight, sorry, but it is such just a singular instrument, even whether it's rapping really fast or singing in this sort of wobbly, concerned full-throatedness.
Yeah, before this I only knew one Neneh Cherry song, and that was Buffalo Stance.
Buffalo Stance, yeah.
Yeah. What is he like? What
Yeah.
is he like? And
Yeah.
that was the one I knew. And when I heard this, I didn't make this connection until you just said it with Trip Hop and Massive Attack. I can hear that for sure.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
with the vocals, and also with those synths in the background, which kind of sound like strings. That's very much a Trip Hop vibe to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And the guy Robert Del Naja from Massive Attack is he worked on that song, so.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, good stuff there. And for those of you who have ever been to summer camp and had someone pull a guitar out and play a song called Save Tonight, that is Neneh Cherry's half brother, Eagle Eye Cherry.
Eagle Eye Cherry, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Neneh and Eagle Eye with
Yeah.
with the two great names there.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Somebody actually posted the other day, on I think Facebook. I was looking at Facebook, which I never do. But somebody was like, every time I go into a CVS, Save Tonight by Eagle Eye Cherry is playing. And I'm going to be going to a CVS on Saturday, so I will. I'll do a scene report.
Fingers crossed. We'll get it done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my next pick is my only pick from the 90s, and it actually came out 30 years ago this year. And 1994, a big year for debuts. You had Portishead Dummy, you had Weezer, the Blue Album, you had Notorious B.I.G. with Ready to Die, Bush, 16 Stone, you had Aaliyah's debut, so... a lot of big ones here, but I went with two brothers. It's two brothers from Manchester. A couple of knock-around guys named Liam and Noel.
Yeah.
Not all that likable. They don't like each other very much either, but they can make some pretty damn good music. And they proved that with their debut album, Definitely Maybe. This is, of course, Oasis. And I went with the second to last track on the album. This is called Slide Away. Yeah, so I think if there's any album that you could call like the Van Halen 1 of the 90s, it's this one, because you've got Live Forever, Rock and Roll Star, Supersonic, Shaker Maker, Cigarettes and Alcohol, just a big debut. I think at the time it was the fastest selling British debut album ever.
It was huge.
Then the next year they put out album number 2, What's the Story, Morning Glory, which was another massive album. And then they do 250,000 people at Nebworth. I mean, we're talking about the span of like 2 or 3 years. It's insane, Maura, just how crazy huge they blew up, and just how crazy huge just the Britpop and cool Britannia scene blew up in general, really, Maura.
Oh, yeah. I was buying British music magazines at this point because they had more record reviews than American ones. And watching that whole thing happen, I will say, I have to speak my truth. In 1994, I was much more partial to Suede than, and I got into Pulp a little later. But it was really just this frothy, incredible thing where there were so many bands. You had Blur, you had the Charlatans, Suede, lots of single word names. And, I used to love just like, I would buy like these compilations of British music to just find out about, what's going to be the next great band that only puts out records in Wales that I'm going to really like. And I feel like Oasis were just so, they really did the speed run of like Rockstar XS with the period between this record and Be Here Now was only like 3 years, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And like, think about, the way that Be Here Now is just like seen as this like ultimate statement of rock and roll excess. So that's how frothy the Britpop scene was back then, is that it could make these bands be huge and then just like ridiculously huge overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then just like that, the peak is over. It's gone with Be Here Now. I think I'm paraphrasing someone. They said that the band Oasis would keep going after that album, but the legend of Oasis dies with that album. And, it's drugs, it's hatred of each other. They always ruin a good thing. And it's crazy because they're brothers. Like, they should get along. They've been growing up together their entire lives. But, again, when you have two combustible elements like Noel and Liam Gallagher, even if you put out the biggest selling British album debut of its time, even if you put out a second album, which is, even bigger, perhaps, that doesn't matter if you can't get along and the band just disintegrates. So, again, they'll keep going for sure. They kept going until I think 2008 or so with their last album. I think Dig Out Your Soul was the last one. But, yeah, man, it's like a shooting star. It burns super bright in the sky, and then just like that, it's gone.
So do you think they're going to reunite?
I don't know, man. It's been, what, 15 years or so?
16
years, yeah. And I know Noel has his stuff. Liam has his stuff. I mean, again, never say never, but with two brothers who, once had like a bootleg single put out of just them arguing, it's going to be difficult, I think, to imagine it.
Yeah. Well, money though. Money can do. Money can heal a lot of wounds.
That's true. money can bury a lot of sadness, as the other saying goes. Yeah. All right, Maura, what is your next pick?
So my next pick is a song from 2011 that is kind of I guess it was 2010, but it hit kind of here in 2011. It's kind of a meta song about going out to the club. It's by the singer Katy B, who was a British singer who came up in the late 2000s, early 2010s as part of the kind of like EDM pop movement that was happening then, very, very early dubstep. And she kind of brought together dubstep and pop in this really charming way on her debut album. And this is the quasi-title track from that debut album. It's called Katy on a Mission.
push past, but he wants to play. So I sip his drink as I hold his gaze. Oh, when we erupt into the room and hear the stuff go boom, a feeling easy to resume. This right here, I swear, will end too soon. So I sink into the doom as I inhale the fume. A feeling easy to resume. This right here, I swear will.
So Katie B, similar to like Adele and Amy Winehouse and a bunch of other British pop singers of note around that time, she went to the Brit School. But when she was in her teens, she got really into the British underground dance scene, which at that time was like grime and dubstep and UK garage. And she hooked up with this producer named Benga, who created the beat for this song. So obviously, like, I feel like these two elements work together so well, because her voice, you know, she has this really kind of like sweet, winsome voice, and she's narrating her time at the club, and the emotions in miniature that she's experiencing are blown out wide by this incredible beat. And I feel like it's kind of this microcosm of how going out dancing can make you just completely immerse yourself in that moment.
Yeah, again, another artist I've never heard of. So this is my first time experiencing them. It looks like she used to go by the name Baby Katie when she was starting out.
When she was starting out, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I again, I have nothing really to offer as far as my
totally.
my thoughts on Katie B.
I just really love this, like, her record, and I feel like, you know, at the time and certainly in the years since, like, the dubstep scene in the States was very, very male driven, and she kind of brought in this element that was, you know, inspired by like singers like Aaliyah or even singers like the Sugar Babes, and I feel like it definitely added like a leavening to those heavy beats that I thought was really that made the songs a lot more appealing to me.
All right. Well, my next pick here is from 2003.
Okay.
So just over 20 years ago here. And this is not only a debut album, it's also their only album.
Ooh.
This is a one and doneer. And we got another supergroup of sorts, I guess, because it's Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie. It's Jimmy Tamborello, a.k.a. Dintel. And on backup vocals, we've got Jenny Lewis from Rilo Kiley.
Yep.
So it's an indie smorgasbord here of good stuff. This is, of course, the Postal Service, and their only studio album is called Give Up. Very fitting name, I guess, if you only have one album. And I went with a song called Brand New Colony.
When your judgment's on the brink, I'll be the phonograph that plays your favorite albums back as you're lying there, drifting off to sleep. I'll be the platform shoes, undo what heredity's done to you. You won't have to strain to look into my eyes. I'll be your winter coat, buttoned and zipped straight to the throat with the collar up, so you won't catch cold. I want to take you far from the cynics in this town and kiss you on the mouth. We'll cut our bodies free from the tethers of this scene. Start a brand new colony where everything will change. We'll give ourselves new names, identities erased. The sun will heat the ground under our bare feet. In this brand new colony, brand new colony.
So 2003.
Yeah.
And the Postal Service, I discovered this band and this song in kind of an unusual way. It was through a video game, because this song was
Which
on
one?
this. It was, of all things, NHL 2K7.
Yeah.
Because most of the soundtrack was bands from Sub Pop Records. So
nice.
You had Mudhoney, you had Sleater Kenny, Band of Horses, and you also had this band, Postal Service, on there. So for a hockey game, a sports game, I guess, it's kind of an odd choice to go with,
Yeah.
But again, it grabbed me when I first heard it, and I've listened to it ever since, all these years later. And other key tracks on this one: Such Great Heights, The District Sleeps Alone Tonight, We Will Become Silhouettes. Again, only album they ever did, but when it's, got such great songs on it, then I guess they took the Give Up name literally and said, we're not topping this one. We'll go out on top there, Maura.
Yeah, and they've both, done their own thing since. And obviously they did the tour last year.
Yeah, they've reunited every 10 years for the
yeah.
reunion tours. Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to Jimmy Tamborello's early band Figurine, which put out some really great songs, especially the song Batteries Can't Help Me Now was a big favorite of mine. It's a song about a sad robot, and I love it. But they put out some records in the late 90s rather. I have a very specific memory of first hearing this record. I was at my then partner's house, and I'd been living in New York. He was living in Philadelphia, and he was at work, and it was snowing. And he was a writer as well, so he was much better about getting advances of CDs in the mail from labels like Sub Pop. And there was a little white sleeve, because that was what Sub Pop put their promo CDs in. They put their Sub Pop promos in a white sleeve with a sticker slapped on top, and it was the Postal Service. And I spent the entire time that I was snowed in, unable to get back to New York, listening to that Postal Service record. So I have a very vivid sense memory of sitting in a living room in South Philadelphia listening to that record on repeat over and over again. And it's great. I mean, like I said, I really liked Death Cab for Cutie. I saw them at South by Southwest in the late 90s, and I had such a thrilling time at that show, and I loved Figurine. So it was kind of a delight, that album. I haven't revisited it in a long time, but hearing this song made me want to.
I did the other day just to prepare for this episode. And if you want to hear the sweetest sounding song about nuclear apocalypse, We Will Become Silhouettes is the track for you. So
nice.
A big recommend for me on this whole album. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Maura, what is next for you?
Well, I guess with my last two picks, we're kind of getting sort of back into the wrestling adjacent part of everything, since this next artist sometimes sends messages to Zack Sabre Jr. Also, we're getting back into the tattoos part, because I have a tattoo of imagery from this particular album on my right wrist. So this is the first proper solo release from the legendary George Michael. Although you could argue that Wham was very much his solo stuff, since he wrote a lot of the music by himself, and as Andrew Ridgeley wrote in his really great autobiography, gave Andrew credits that, maybe were a little too generous. But God bless Andrew Ridgeley. I had such a crush on him when I was a kid, and I still have my copy of Son of Albert on CD, so But George Michael put out in 1987, he put out his first solo full-length album, and it was called Faith. And like many of the other records we have talked about on this particular episode, it is stacked with hits.
Oh yeah.
It has I Want Your Sex, it has Faith, it has Father Figure, it has One More Try, it has Monkey, it has Kissing a Fool. And then it has the third single from the album, which was not as much of a hit on pop radio as the other tracks that I just mentioned, but which is an incredible hard-hitting funk electro song that George Michael wrote and produced. And you can see, you can hear in this, just how much of a scholar he was of all of the music that was happening, particularly in the R&B and soul and dance realm at the time. This song is called Hard Day, and it is so freaking awesome. And also there is a remix of it by the legendary producer and remixer and DJ Shep Pettibone, who worked with Madonna and who worked with a bunch of other, Janet Jackson and a bunch of other people. His remix of this song is even better. It's 8 minutes long, but let's go with the album version. This is Hard Day by George Michael.
bass line, man. Woo.
Right? He was a freaking genius. I'm telling you, he was just the best. Yeah, so that was the third single. So only 2 of the songs on Faith were not released as singles. Hand to Mouth, which was a sort of look at social inequality, and then Look at Your Hands, which is another like really like funky track. But I just love the bass line on this song, and I love George Michael's vocal on this. I think it's so just like unbridled. And then at the end of the song, for the last verse, he actually sings similar to how Prince had his alter ego Camille, which was like a pitched up version of his voice. George Michael sings as the woman who's being sung to in this track, in like a pitched up voice as sort of a response, and it's really cool. And yeah, he was just the best. I feel like I didn't appreciate him enough, and I appreciate him so much, but I just feel like I didn't appreciate him enough. And like, I still think about like when I saw the news that he had passed away on Christmas in 2016, because like my friend John Solomon, I think I've mentioned him before, maybe. My good friend John Solomon, if he's listening, hi John. He does a 25-hour Christmas radio show every year on WPRB in Princeton. And I had gone to visit him from my parents' house because I had been at my parents' house on Long Island. And I'd left, I take the train back to Hicksville from Princeton. And as I was getting off the train in Hicksville, I saw like the news on my phone that he had passed away. And I'm like, when you like feel your heart just like kind of break, like I felt it. Yeah, he was the best. I mean, he was so good at just being so thoughtful. He loved soul music, and you could tell from everything that he did. From his cover of What a Fool Believes that he did live on tour was out of this world. And even songs like Everything She Wants from Wham's Make It Big certainly were very inspired by what was happening in R&B at the time. But I just like, Faith is just such a fantastic record, and it's one that I think anyone who is listening to this should just go put it on right now. I'm probably going to put it on as soon as we're done recording.
I don't blame you. It's a classic, and it always kind of strikes me just how few albums of his that he put out. There's only 5 studio albums of his solo career. One of them is a covers album.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, there's like 3 Wham albums as well. So for a guy with such an amazing level of talent and a boatload of hits too, like he really packed in the hits with such limited album time, I guess. But for a guy like that to have such a relatively, I stress that word, relatively smaller body of work compared to his contemporaries or compared to some other pretty well known solo artists, it's pretty shocking. But when you have the kind of life that he had with his troubles, both legally and personally, and of course the famous arrest in the bathroom, which you can see why that kind of took his attention away from music as he got older, unfortunately. And thankfully we do have work of his to appreciate, but it is a shame that we have to appreciate them after he's gone. So
yeah. I mean, I feel like the legal battle that he had with Sony just really kind of took a lot out of him, and obviously it would. And I feel like you can draw the parallels to Prince. Certainly they went through similar things in similar times, but I feel like with George Michael, he wanted to, he also was very, devoted to his like philanthropy and very kind, he wanted to be a private person, and he had a lot of, I think, anxiety about his appearance. I listened to the old American Top 40 countdowns, and Casey Kasem loves talking about how George Michael was an awkward kid. And I know that for somebody who, if you felt awkward at one point in your life, and if you feel like you're on your back foot again, you're going to be gun shy about going out in public. So, not to psychoanalyze George Michael, but at the same time, like, I think that a lot of he went through a lot, and he went through a lot in public, and he also, his partner passed away, which also was really hard on him. I recommend, there was a movie about George Michael that came out a couple of years ago. I think it was called, it was called George Michael Portrait of an Artist. And was that it? Wait. Or was it? Yeah, I think it was. No, because there was another one I thought that came out. Sorry. But
there was a Wham documentary that came out recently.
Yeah, the Wham documentary was on Netflix. I saw this one in the theater. I think it was Portrait of an Artist. It was like a one night only screening that happened. But it really dug into the sort of things that he was dealing with. And to be somebody who's so scrutinized, and then, he was so great about turning, being this sort of punchline into a joke. He was very cheeky about turning it back on himself. It was, it was like the outside video was his equivalent of Pee Wee Herman opening the VMAs with "Heard any good jokes lately?" Yeah. But I just feel like he was just so great, and I feel like his body of work, even the early Wham stuff, it's just so forward thinking, and he really was somebody who had to fight for respect too, because you had even with the way that he got respect with Faith, but then he still felt like he was being kind of portrayed as this boy toy, which led to him burning the Faith leather jacket on fire in the Freedom 90 video, and not being on camera for that video either. And I feel like he was somebody who definitely had to fight. I feel like, if he had been around if he had been a new artist in the early 2010s, I feel like he might have pulled a Weekend sort of thing, been very kind of semi-anonymous and stuff. I don't know. I guess you could say that about a lot of people. Yeah. And Zack Sabre Jr., now he appears to Zack Sabre Jr.
comes to him in his dreams.
In dreams,
yes.
Which is beautiful.
Use the Tekkas, he said. Use the Tekkas. Oh, Billy No Brains is going to knock you out. Use the Tekkas. Yeah. Okay, my second to last pick here is from one of my other favorite bands. They're from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada.
Ooh.
And it's a band I've seen live in concert, The Killers.
Yeah.
And their debut album came out 20 years ago this year, Hot Fuss. And it's got Mr. Brightside, the biggest song ever, apparently. It's got Somebody Told Me, All These Things That I've Done, Jenny Was a Friend of Mine. And I went with another song off this album here. This is called Smile Like You Mean It.
Yeah, awesome.
Save some face. You know you've only got one. Change your ways while you're young. One day you'll be a man. Oh, girl, he'll help you understand. Smile like you mean it. Smile like you mean it. Looking back at sunsets on the sun.
Yeah, you want to talk about a band that really grew sonically. Compare how they sound on this first album to how they sound on their later albums. It is pretty different, because I think this first album, they sound almost British, especially with Brandon's vocals. They sound very, very British. And given that they named their band after a fake band in a New Order video, that kind of lines up there. But as they've gone on, they've become a lot more arena rock. They've become a lot more Americana.
American, yeah.
Yeah. Very very Brandon Springsteen over here. But I've been with them every step of the way. And I've also been with Brandon's solo albums as well.
Oh, yeah.
That he's put out there, too. I think they're both fantastic.
Can't Deny My Love is the best freestyle song of the 2010s, yeah.
The Desired Effect is an excellent album.
Yeah.
But, Yeah, a really strong starting point here. I think to this day, Mr. Brightside is still in the UK charts, which is just insane to think about. But you put that song on and everybody will go nuts, I guarantee you. And I saw them on the Wonderful, Wonderful tour back in January of 2018.
Oh, nice.
I believe it was. And it was a hell of a show. There was confetti 2 songs in.
Yeah.
And it was funny to see, people standing around with open, cups of beer, and the confetti just kind of pours into their beer. But yeah, Hot Fuss, a real a killer debut. Maura.
Yeah. Wait, so are you going to go? Do you know they just opened their residency last night too in Vegas?
Oh yes, I listened to their new single to commemorate Bright Lights.
How is it? Is it good?
It's good. It sounds like a killer song, So
Nice.
it's very upbeat, and it's the original lineup too, back together, which is pretty cool. And but I don't have any plans to go to Vegas anytime soon. But if I did, I'd probably go to see their show. Yeah.
I'm just sad that they're not going to be at the Mirage before the Mirage gets because the Mirage is closing. It might already be closed. It was definitely open when I was there, when I was in Vegas in May, but it might already be closed. But yeah, they're really fun. I mean, I was definitely a killer skeptic at the outset, just because I was like kind of a bitch when I was in my late 20s. But I knew this woman. I knew her when she was a high schooler. This woman, Sarah Lewitton, who was also known as Ultra Girl, and she was the biggest proponent of the Killers. She was telling everybody they're going to be huge, and she was right, and she's still right 20 years later. So yeah, it's kind of incredible that they've been around for as long as they have, and every year, I have students who are like, "Yeah, we love Mr. Brightside," and I was like, I would not have picked that to be the Don't Stop Believing.
Were you even born then, for God's sake?
No, well, a lot of, yes, although I'm coming up on the answer being no in about 2 years. So get ready for that.
Yeah, oh boy. I feel it too. I feel it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they just played not too long ago, Boston Calling.
Yeah,
and,
did you go to that?
I work on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
I can't go.
Yeah.
And they also played like a special show right here in Brighton at the
at the
Paradise Rock
Paradise,
Club.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't go to that too because the tickets sold out in a minute.
Sold out so quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've wanted to see them again, but I just haven't been able to find the time or the tickets, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll tour again. They were good. I saw them at TD Garden in like 2022, and it was really fun. Yeah, speaking of Boston Calling, my last artist.
Oh, a wonderful
Boston
transition
Calling.
there.
Yes. She has many looks, and she debuted her Luchadora look at Lollapalooza earlier this month, and she's the best. She's the big breakout pop star of 2024, and I would not have predicted that, even though I went bananas for this album when I had to review it back in September of 2023. And actually, I reviewed it. I listened to it while I was in New York for Grand Slam. And then I just went completely bonkers for it. And she is an incredible singer, an incredible pop songwriter, somebody who I think really brings the spirit of peak era Madonna into this new era of singers. And it's so nice to have pop songs that have big hooks that are sung by extremely excitable singers. I was really getting bummed out about the whole quiet girl, sad girl thing. But this is Chapel Roan. This is from her debut album, her Long in the Works debut album, I should say, The Rise and Fall of Midwest Princess, which came out back in September of last year. Although she's been working, some of the songs that that are on this record, like Pink Pony Club, and what's the other one? Naked in Manhattan, have been kicking around for a while. But she is so awesome, and I love this particular song. This is at the midpoint of her album, and it's called Super Graphic Ultra Modern Girl.
You know what they say,
Never waste a Friday night on a first date. But there I was, in my heels with my hair straight. And so I took him to this bar. This man wouldn't dance. He didn't ask a single question. And he was wearing these foggy jeans. It doesn't matter though. He doesn't have what it takes to be with a girl like me. Not over dramatic. I know what I want. We're leaving the planet and you can't come. I'm through with all this hate and negative about my boys like you. Oh yeah, I need a super graphic ultimate girl like me. We're talking. Wow, look at her moving, baby, she's the one. Oh yeah, I need a super graphic ultimate girl like me. Telling secrets, there are no matches.
Maura, you can't see me. I am raising the roof like
Yeah.
Ultimo Guerrero over here. That is
Awesome.
a stone cold banger, baby.
It's so good.
I love
Oh
that
my
song.
gosh. This whole record, it's just so fun, and like it's got so many different types of pop. Like, people have really been into Hot to Go, which has its own little like kind of YMCA style dance because you spell out the words in the chorus. Pink Pony Club has really, it's kind of like an old school sort of like ballad but it's about like, a girl telling her mom that she wants to dance at a burlesque club in LA. Casual is like a really sad power ballad that's also kind of graphic. And yeah, like it's just this whole record. Oh, and I will say also, My Kink is Karma is the song that really got me into her, and that was because of a Instagram post by Hangman Adam Page after in the summer of 2023 when there was stuff going on behind the scenes at AEW. But I just love like that she's so fun, and like I feel like she just brings this whole element of like unabashedness into pop, which like is what makes the best pop. It's what made Cyndi Lauper so great. It's what made Madonna when she dressed up like, she was in the Marie Antoinette court so great. It's what made Marie Antoinette, the movie by Sofia Coppola that I saw last night, so great. That kind of just like fearlessness. And I mean, she worked with Dan Nigro, who was also the producer who worked with Olivia Rodrigo on Sour and Guts, which are also two fantastic albums, and which I considered for this because Sour has a lot of great songs on it. But it's been so cool to see Chapel Roan like become the hugest thing. Like the crowds that are at her performances and singing along in unison are just incredible. You don't think that you'd see those type of crowds for new artists anymore. And she's somebody who has just commanded the spotlight. I saw her when she opened for Olivia Rodrigo back in April, and it was like her second to last or maybe her last show on the Olivia Rodrigo tour. And it's hard for openers to get the attention of arena show attendees, because unless they're like, unless it's like a sort of package tour thing like the Missy Elliott show where like Ciara and Busta Rhymes and Timbaland, who have all worked with Missy in the past, like were the openers. But like people were into it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be something, I think. And then like Boston Calling, with the giant crowds where people were like forwarding TikToks of those giant, just undulating, terrifying groups of people in the Harvard athletic fields, was like 8 weeks after. And it's just kind of amazing. And I'm so happy because I feel like that she's what pop needs. Pop's been really fun this year, I will say. Like, I really love singles like, Million Dollar Baby by Tommy Richmond, and that Shabuzi song is pretty fun. My nephew is a big fan of the Shabuzi song too. And obviously, you have Chapel Roan kind of taking over. And it's been good, but this record is so just, it's such a great thing. And seeing her live too, like if you're listening and you're curious about this, watch her Tiny Desk performance on YouTube. Because like that, I think, is a really great introduction to her as well.
Yeah, I've only gotten to know her pretty recently, but if you take away the outfits and the makeup and the wigs and all that stuff, if she doesn't have the sheer natural talent
Oh yeah,
to sing
for
her
sure.
lungs out, it's not going to hit. But she does have that talent, and it does hit. And we've touched upon this on the episode too. There's some music that's meant to be depressing and dark and dour, but some music is just, it's meant to be fun. Van Halen is fun. Madonna is fun. Chapel Rowan is fun. And I'm a guy who likes hard rock and metal and all that stuff, but you give me a catchy-ass pop tune and I will move and groove with the best of them there, Maura. That's the power of music, really.
I'm so glad that you like it. I also think it's very apt that the first person to invite, she performed in Luchador Aguirre, and she had a bunch of bodybuilders on stage with her, and her drummer was in a ring when she played Lollapalooza. And after that happened, like, Willow Nightingale immediately was like, anytime you want to come to AEW, and it's like, that is a great match. Her and Willow are a great match. So
Willow, much like, Rowan, has some good music, so
she does.
It's right there for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, my last pick is from 2013, and I'm going to close out my songs with some Scottish synth pop here, and this is a band I've been liking a lot lately, the past couple of years. This is Churches.
Yes.
And it's spelled Chvrches, Chvrches, all caps, and their debut album is called The Bones of What You Believe. And I went with the first song on the album. This is called The Mother We Share.
Never took your side, never cursed your name. I keep my lips shut tight until you go. We come as far as we're ever gonna get until you realize that you should go. Come in misery where you can seem as old as your omens, and the mother we share will never keep your proud head from falling. The way is long, but you can make it easy on me. And the mother we share will never keep our cold heart from calling. In the dying light, I'm the only one here, and I will come.
There we go. Yes.
So great.
The complexities of Andrew Rich. I start with King Crimson. I end with Churches. But I like them both. I can't lie. I like them both. And with Churches, I believe I first heard them, and this song in particular, I first heard it when I was studying abroad in England in 2014. And I thought, oh, this is a pretty good song. And then, for whatever reason, I didn't forget them, but I just didn't keep up with them after that. And then a few years ago, I started listening to their albums, and I really dug them a lot. And the lead singer, I'm trying to remember her name.
Lauren Mayberry.
Lauren Mayberry, yeah, thank you, Lauren Mayberry. She has a very distinct voice.
Very distinct.
And you blend that with all of these, synths and electro pop goodness. I think it makes for a really cool sound, and it sends those little tingly feelings up my spine. So, Churches. They got 4 studio albums to date, and they've got my seal of approval. They've got Maura's seal of approval. So, what more do you need?
Yeah. Lauren Mayberry is, she put out a new solo single a couple of months ago too called Change Shapes. That's fantastic. And it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more spare than Churches, because Churches is so enveloping, and there's a reason they had Robert Smith of The Cure on their last record, because he sort of pioneered that all-encompassing gloom feel. But I really like Change Shapes a lot, so check it out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, well, that does it for our songs. That does it for the episode. Maura, thank you a million times for being here. This was fun. The most fun I've had on a podcast in a very, very long time.
Aww.
And it's because of you being here that I enjoyed it so much.
Thanks, Andrew.
So thank you again for being here.
Well, it's always a pleasure to chat with you about music.
Of course. Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
I write for the Boston Globe. I wrote about the Missy Elliott show. It was in Monday's paper and it's online. And I'll be covering the Pink show next Wednesday at Gillette Stadium. I've been a little quiet lately. I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are, which is a big reason why I'm going to XOXO next week to help get some inspiration from some fellow internet olds and figure out what to do next. But I think I might start up my Substack again to get back into writing about new releases, because that was something I really enjoyed doing at the end of the 2010s that kind of fell off because of publication budget reasons, but certainly there's no reason that I couldn't do it on my own. So be on the lookout. Maura.substack.com. I guess that's one place to look.
I believe in you, Maura. I believe in you no matter what you do.
You.
So,
I
and hey,
that.
worst
Thank
comes
you
to
so
worst,
much.
there's always this show. So you always have a place here. So
yeah, not worst comes to worst. Are you kidding? This is like so fun for me. So we got to come back and talk about that Outrunners music when the discourse dies down.
Oh yes,
because I feel like we could do a whole episode on that.
Of course, yes. Well, I'll just say that Music of the Mat is part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. You can find all the shows at voicesofwrestling.com. The show still has a Twitter at Music of the Mat. I have not gone on Twitter since New Year's as part of a New Year's resolution, because it is a very silly, stupid place. But the accounts are still active. The show account and my personal account are still active. But I think I will just post the episode links on the Twitter page moving forward, just to get it out there. So again, at Music of the Mat. If you want to comment on this episode, comment on the new format of the show, or just give your picks for favorite debut albums, you can do so at voicesofwrestling.com/discord. The VOW Discord. It's a fun time most of the time. Sometimes it's pretty crazy.
Just don't look at it on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Or Thursday mornings.
Yeah, just duck and weave when you can. Duck and weave.
Yeah.
But voicesofwrestling.com/discord. And, rate, review, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and your podcast player of choice. And tell all your friends about it as well. And I hope people out there enjoyed the new format. I really do, because I enjoyed doing the show today. I know, Maura, you did as well.
Yeah,
and,
very much.
This was a lot of fun. And how about this? Let's go out with a play-out song. And we'll play a song from a band that you brought up earlier, Maura, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah! Oh my gosh. I actually was like, I can't believe I didn't include Guns N' Roses.
I figured there are so many albums we just did not get to.
We did leave out a ton,
I mean, we could have done this topic all day long, all night long, and kept going and going and going. But I figured we should at least acknowledge one of the all-time greatest, most perfect albums, debut or otherwise, with Appetite for Destruction. So let's go out with Paradise City.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. So, Maura, thank you again, and I'll see you around.
See ya. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm Andrew Rich, and I'll see you next time on Music of the Mat. Here's Paradise City.
Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.